Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Connect, president of Universal Accounting Center. Here we have on the show each and every week experts that actually help us work on our business so that we can offer quality accounting services and get paid what we're worth. Each and every week I bring on those experts so as to help us address topics ranging from marketing, selling, pricing, client onboarding, tech stacks, training staff, client retention, and so much more. And this is going to be an excellent discussion today because I've got Jeff Bartsch. I'm so sorry. Jeff Bartsch, and he is the founding communication strategist with Story Greenlight and has been recognized as a top 30 thought leader in the accounting advisory world. With over 20 years of professional background in the entertainment industry and client coaching, Jeff has helped shape content for clients including ABC, NBC, Disney, Apple, Netflix, and many others. Jeff's commentary has also been featured in publications including Accounting Today, the Associated Press, and US Today. Through Story Greenlight, Jeff empowers accounting advisors to attract and keep their ideal advisory clients so that they can expand their business and their impact in the world. He believes that the power of story is within reach of everyone and that the human connection is everything. So, Jeff, welcome to the show.
Hi, Roger. Looking forward to this.
This is going to be a lot of fun. So, first of all, your background in accounting. Let's at least give some context for our listeners as to what it is that you have as an accounting background. And then I want to weave into it this entertainment industry component.
Sure. First of all, I'm not an accountant. My grandfather was an accountant back in World War II.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, go figure. He ended up, he was not a CPA, but he was a lifelong accountant. And I didn't think I'd ever have any connection to it. I ended up being a musician, starting out as a musician as a kid. For the first 25 years of my life, I was known as Jeff the Piano Guy. I discovered video production in high school. That turned into film school, which turned into 20 years making TV in Hollywood. And that's what I thought I was going to be doing for my whole life. And there was a day I was at an industry panel and I was super excited. I don't remember exactly where it was, but one of the members on this industry panel was a man who was a re-recording mixer at Warner Brothers Studios, staff re-recording mixer. So what he does, he sits in his own private movie theater all day in front of a mixing console that literally stretches from one side of the room to another. It's just this massive machine.
Yeah.
And he mixes all that sound together and he creates the finished mix of the movie. And so someone asked this guy, they said, how is it that you work with such complicated tools? How do you learn all that stuff? And he said, well, you have to, because the tools are not the point. The bigger and more impressive the tools, the more important it is that you know them like the back of your hand so you can make them disappear so you can focus on what really matters. And for some reason, that just stuck in my head, and it's stuck in my head ever since. And I think that ends up having a lot of crossover to what we end up doing in the accounting world when we have all these moving pieces, especially you come up and you learn the trade, you learn the craft, but then you say, well, I'm going to open a firm. I'm going to do this as a business. Well, that opens up a whole other can of worms. So we have all these things that we have to learn. But at the end of the day, we have to make all that stuff disappear so we can focus on what really matters. And I think that's where there's a lot of room to dive into that in this next few minutes here.
Oh, yeah. Well, the thing that's very interesting to me is I actually have a background a little bit in the film industry, and I've got some family that is in the film industry. Yeah. And it's a fascinating profession. But the thing that I like is, and what I want to get to in your story is how what you had in the entertainment industry evolve into working with accounting advisors, that evolution. Why accounting?
Yes. First of all, I mean, it started out as being completely self-serving because here I'm sitting in a darkened room making TV all day. And by many people's estimations, I was literally living the dream. I could see that in that identity, in that context, that I was going to be, unless I elevated from that identity, I was going to be hitting an income ceiling and I wanted to have more possibilities. So I said, I'm going to start learning about online business. And that turned into coaching and teaching people what I had learned in Hollywood. And at first it was how to do what I was doing as a television editor, cutting full-time, primetime broadcast TV. But what that transitioned into, the more I learned about it, the more I realized that Hollywood is not about movies and TV. Everyone thinks that's what it is, but those are just the deliverables. Those are just the vehicles for the true value that makes everything work. And what I realized eventually was the thing that makes Hollywood work is the messaging that it does in such a way that it makes the audience truly pay attention and care, and to continue to pay attention for 2 hours or an hour or an entire weekend if you're watching Netflix. So that value is what I realized. This is what can translate over into the business world. Because when you think about, when you think about conversations about marketing, for instance, I've heard you have a conversation on this podcast talking about, you have your messaging, you have your strategy, and then you have your distribution, and you need all three of them to work. But when you think about that, the things that come first have a disproportionate effect on everything downstream of it. If you start from ground zero with an average message, an average strategy, and an average distribution, you can get results. But man, if you were to take an average strategy and average distribution, and you were to just elevate the message at the beginning, everything downstream of it elevates at the same time. It is the first things of putting a message into the world. And that is what Hollywood does so incredibly well. And that's what I've started plugging into my work with my clients.
Well, the thing that I really like about what you're addressing here, and this is where I'd like to really focus, is as accounting professionals, we struggle to share the story of the business and make it relevant to the business owner who lived the story. They were the ones that this past month or year went through and experienced everything that we're about ready to, in black and white, in numbers, try and summarize as to what happened as it relates to transactions and so forth. And so for the business owner, they're basically saying, you're telling me the story that I lived, but we want to tell it in a way that makes it interesting. We want to, as accounting professionals, to get their attention as to why what they experienced a month ago, a quarter ago, is relevant to them today, so that as business owners, they want to rehear the story that they lived and see how it can help them live tomorrow even better. That's where I think a lot of what you're sharing is so relevant, is because it's the storytelling. It's the means by which we communicate this thing that they've already experienced. Would you agree with that assumption?
I would absolutely agree. And I would also say that where the industry has come from has largely been unchanged since the Italian Renaissance, since the Summa Arithmetica came out in the late 1400s. I mean, you have the core ideas of accounting, but when you start adding more and more technology and you start adding the globalization of business, all of a sudden the accounting world is changing, along with all the other worlds, especially now with technology-driven change and pipeline change. And all of a sudden things are squeezing. And you have people saying, if we're going to survive, we need to create more value for our business clients. And part of that is telling the story of what happened. But a big part of that, in the overall shift to advisory that so many people are doing, is saying, let's take the story of what happened and help them imagine the future outcome of the story that's still to come. So it is absolutely driven by storytelling. Because the fact of the matter is, every human communication, for any reason, can be explained through a storytelling framework. And if you think I'm exaggerating, I would be happy to explain that.
Well, before I ask you to explain that, I'd like to just kind of back up on a few of the things that you just shared, because there's a attention deficit. There's quite a bit of intolerance for long explanations of things nowadays, simply because of the short reels and TikTok videos and so forth. People just don't have the attention span. So as an accounting profession, we struggle to articulate our information in a way that the business owner has not only the patience to hear it, but understand the relevance of it. So I want to ask about, how do you apply strategic storytelling to actually help with the client interactions when we're communicating this information about their own companies to themselves?
Yeah. Well, so here's ground zero. First of all, you have to be really careful when you talk to people about the concept of story, because if you're not careful, people will hear the word story and they're going to think, oh, it's just an anecdote that you share over the in-person or digital water cooler, however
Or
it
it's made
happens
up.
to work, or it's made up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, so there's that. And that's what I refer to as a tactical story. But anytime that you've heard a tactical story told really well, and everyone has heard that, everyone knows what a story told really well means, because you feel it, you understand it, you connect with it. The power that makes that happen does not come from the tactical story itself. It comes from the elements of strategic storytelling. That's the big 40,000 foot view. So
Yeah,
that's
it's a
the first thing.
process.
Exactly. So the first thing that I always tell my clients is we have to start in the idea of what a story is from the
Okay.
strategic standpoint. And I know you're familiar with Donald Miller and StoryBrand. This actually
Yes.
originally
Yes.
comes from one of Miller's earlier fiction writings, where one of his characters says, a story is where a character wants something and overcomes obstacles to get it. To which I added since then, and experiences transformation as a result.
Very
So
good.
when you take that concept of what a story is, a character who wants something, overcomes obstacles to get it, and experiences transformation as a result, you have a framework to understand every moment of our waking life. You have a framework to understand every interaction with your business, with your client, with your team members, with your partners, with your vendors, with your stakeholders, you name it. And the challenge with all this is, anytime you have more than one person, everyone is living their own storyline. So when you add another person into the equation, you start stacking up storylines. And the question becomes, are they lined up? And that's where things get tricky, because humans can be complicated.
Yeah. Well, for us, the client is the hero. The
Exactly.
client is the one who is not just paying the bills, but they're the ones experiencing this business that they're running and operating. And so they're the hero. So by default, if they're the hero, we're the sage, we're the mentor, right? So in the storytelling strategy, what could you enlighten us to understand as to our role and how we would go about helping the client see the value in the services that we're providing, especially as let's say, an advisor, as you mentioned?
Exactly. This is where you take that core definition of a story and you have to start asking questions to fill in the gaps that you don't know about your client. I mean, sometimes a client comes on board and you already know a good bit about them and what they want. But then when you start asking, what do they say they want? What do they actually want? Why do they want that? When you start asking those kind of questions and you say, what's keeping them from getting it? What have we experienced in our life that can speak to what they want? And how can we, as the guides, come alongside our hero clients and help them get what they want? That is the entire process of certainly what service-based business does. It provides the service that is the thing that helps the client overcome their obstacles so they can see the transformation that they want. And it all starts by asking questions.
Yes.
But it's not just any questions. It is the things that they care about. If you ask questions that are just surface level, they might have some use. But when you learn to ask the deeper questions that connect to the things that the clients truly care about, that is when you achieve incredible results. As an example, so one of my clients is a gal by the name of Hannah.
Okay.
And so I was talking with her. She is a virtual CFO working for a company called Summit Virtual CFO by Anders. So they are at the very top level of what they do within the virtual CFO world. And so Hannah is working with one of her end clients who's the CEO of a company who was feeling a lot of tension. She was really worked up. And so Hannah and I were on a call. We were working things out. And I said, so what are the issues at play? And to shorten the description of things, basically, we came to a process. We went through a process where we discovered that the CEO client was feeling torn between two ideas of, I want to protect the value of my company, and I really, really care about my people. And I want a compensation package that honors my people now while protecting my company EBITDA into the future, because I want to be acquired. And I think I have to choose between the two. She felt like she had to choose between the two. And this is why it's so important to know what the client wants. Because if they feel like they don't have a choice, and you can be like Hannah, who took some of our conversation and she adjusted her cash flow forecast and said, here's what happens if you change this, and this is what you'd have to do to bring in sales to make up the difference. And she said, she told me later, she saw the weight lift off the client's shoulders. And by the end of the conversation, they were both in tears of happiness. That is the kind of thing that when you have that kind of thought process and that kind of discovery and the knowledge of what your people truly want and how to give them what they truly want, you don't just create emotional reactions, you create revenue for your business because you have a client for life.
Well, one of the things that I like about what you're sharing here is the emotional side of what we oftentimes experience when we get to that point working with our clients. What I'm referring to is the fact that they will have epiphanies, these insights that they are now able to have because of the information we're providing about where to take their company next. That's one of the things that's very important. I refer to it as asking the question, therefore what? I've received these financial reports. What do I do now? And what we're trying to do as accounting professionals is highlight, bring to attention those things that they need to be paying attention to, that they need to be aware of, so that they can make more informed business decisions. And then that's when they're going to experience, just like you shared, that breakthrough moment, that emotional relief of, I know what to do now. I know what to do next. It becomes clear for them. And that's one of the things that's very, very empowering, because now as accounting professionals, we're contributing to the success of their business. So I have to ask, are there specific tools that people can use right now to kind of follow this storyline approach, or to try and bring the story to the client interaction?
Yes. Seriously, if you take that core story definition of a character who wants something, overcomes obstacles to get it, and experiences transformation as a result, if you print that out and you put it up on your wall and you really start thinking about it, it will change everything about how you interact with your clients, because it's driven by deep core human elements. It's narrative forces that operate literally on the level of gravity. It's there whether you realize it or not. Because when you think about who people are, identity, you think about what they want, it's a desire. When in things that are keeping you from getting what you want, it's obstacles. And then when you get past that, you see the change, identity, desire, obstacles, change. Those are core elements to the human experience. And when you plug those into human interactions with your clients, that is how you start truly understanding how to ask the questions to figure out what they really want. Now, the question is, what matters to your client? What truly matters to the client? There's another concept that I always talk about with my clients. It's called the thing under the thing. And if you imagine this, the classic picture of an iceberg.
Okay.
The tip is right above the water. And as everyone knows, you have the level of the water and this hulking mass of what is the most amount of the iceberg is hidden under the surface. This is what happens with human communication, because we always tend to talk about the things that are on the surface, but the things that we truly care about are way down below. And what we do as human beings is we create connections between the stuff that we care about and the stuff that's on the surface. It's just like you see a picture of stars and white stars on a blue field and red and white stripes. It's just a design. Or is it? No, it's a symbol. to which people have connected thousands of widely varying, deeply held meanings and beliefs to that visual design. You can see the design of an American flag on the surface, but it means so many things. So when you apply that to the accounting world, you see the number 0. Well, doesn't the number speak for itself? Heck no. What does that number mean? It might mean this is the current this is the this is my current debt balance, because years before it was in the 7 figures and now I'm to 0. I'm happy as a clam. Or maybe it means 0. That's revenue. And that's a problem. So, we all attach meanings. And so to your point about therefore what next, in storytelling parlance, the term is stakes. Why does this matter?
Yep.
That is what, yeah, go ahead.
The first thing that you're giving there is context. The 0 in and of itself doesn't have any meaning, but once you give it context, now we have actually a point of view. And one of the things that I would actually like to elaborate on is when working with our clients, one of the things that we begin with is engage and manifest. And this is to say that we're trying to find out what is their why, what is their passion, what is the purpose of them starting the business, why take so much risk, why sacrifice so much. And rather than just thinking we're providing accounting information to record the transactions of the previous period of time, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get to the whole as to why this business is in business and what their purpose is. Now, once that is there, we have context. And now we can start identifying what are the things we're working towards. And to kind of bring in this story idea, that's where we're trying to now elevate them as the hero. They're the ones that's championing this whole thing. And they're the leader. This is who their employees are kind of taking the guide from as to where the company is going. This is what the clients are gravitating to, that energy, that passion, excitement that they have for what their product or service is. And so as accounting professionals, we want them to be seeing themselves as that hero. And so that therefore what question is simply to say, okay, where are you going now next? What's the next thing that we're going to be doing? And how can we help you along that way? And so these specific tools that you're talking about right now is how do we contextualize this information? How do we make it relevant to them? How do we make the numbers mean more than just their numerical value? We're putting context on them. And so one of the things that I like about what you're talking about here is it's personalizing this information. It's making it relevant to the individual business owner. Would you agree?
Absolutely. The thing that business owners so desperately need is the insight from someone who knows how the numbers work and knows how to attach those insights and the meaning of those insights to the meaning of what the business owner wants. In light of the fact that there are a lot of business owners who feel less than, they feel insecure because they don't know how the numbers work. But they've built their business to whatever level, and they've always gotten by. But man, eventually they get to a point where they're in over their neck and they need help. Some people say, I realize that I need help. And other people, they would not dare admit that they need help. They say, oh, fine. Well, if you have some things to offer, I will consider listening. Please let it be good because I'm dying here. That kind of a thing. So yeah, it really is attaching the meaning of the numbers in such a way that business owners know, okay, here's why this matters and here's the path forward. And that is an incredibly powerful thing that accountants and advisors have to offer, and the world doesn't know it. The world looks at accountants and they say, you're bean counters. Shut up. Don't speak unless we speak to you. Deliver us your reports and we'll put them in the file folder. But the fact is, there is so much value to be transferred. There is so much change to be brought into the world by saying, hey, we know how the numbers work. If you change this, if you look at these KPIs, if you keep these things on track, if you look at those ratios, fill in the blank. That can change businesses, and businesses can change people's lives. It's incredibly powerful.
I'm going to share with you just a client meeting that I had yesterday where I think what I experienced is applicable to this conversation. They, as a client, is a husband-wife team, and they happen to own a very good business, and they're in a growth mode right now, and they're putting everything on the line. And what I mean by that is they're investing quite a bit into new facilities, new equipment. They're growing with their labor pool. And as they're doing this, they're going out on the limb. And my reason for bringing them up is there is an evolution that they experienced, because when they first began meeting with me, especially the wife, they were very reluctant. They were intimidated by the questions I would ask as it related to their business, because they were doing very well, but they honestly didn't understand their business. And what I mean by that is they weren't looking at the numbers. And so when it came time to now need loans and to get investments and so forth, they had to get a few things in order, and they went through a process of really doing quite well and getting all the necessary things in place to grow the business. But now cash flow has become an issue. And as they're now seeing the principles that we've spoken of from a business coaching point of view, the business principles that I've introduced to them over the last few years, now they're becoming more relevant because they see the real world application of these principles. And it really came down to two things: my asking them the right questions and my holding them accountable. Why? Because there were so many things going on in the business, they just felt overwhelmed. And the working that we were able to do together kept them a little bit more grounded, helped them prioritize a lot better what needed to be done next. But the point is they're so committed to their success. This is so personal that they're getting to the point now where they're having to realize that they may need to sell their home to get the necessary cash flow in order to fund the business to take it to the next level. That's their level of commitment. And as a business coach working with them, I have to respect the level of sacrifice and commitment they have as they're running their business. And the numbers that they receive from the accounting is basically a story, a numerical story representing these emotions that they're experiencing as they're going beyond themselves and growing this wonderful business that they expect to sell in the next 5 to 10 years. That's what's happening here. And so as accounting professionals, like you mentioned, it's not that we're just providing the reports so that they can be filed. It's so that we can actually use this information to more intelligently run the business. So I want to ask, regarding kind of the Hollywood approach, what is it that accounting professionals lack that could actually help us better tell the story of what's going on in the business to our clients?
It is, well, in a word, it starts with messaging. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that messaging is the only thing, because God knows there are all the elements that have to be coming together and make everything work. But once you have, once we're like that guy sitting on the mixing stage at Warner Brothers, we know the tools, we have the processes set up, we have our team in place, everything's set up, we know how to package services, we know how to sell them, all the things. At that point, we still have to say, what is the message that we're putting out into the world? And that is the core of what Hollywood does. It starts with powerful messaging that is then it's made operational through the tactical implementation of cinematography, music scoring, lighting, sound, all the things. So within the accounting world, the first question is who are we for? Because if we can't, if we're saying we'll do this stuff for everyone, if we position ourselves as saying we are for everyone, there is no way that you can put a message into the world that will specifically attract the ideal person that you work best with. This is why it's so important when people talk about niches. When you can focus on a niche, it isn't just focus on a niche so you can just say, well, they said we should have a niche, so we're going to do it. No, the reason that niching is so incredibly powerful in positioning is because it allows you to have a message that is very proactively shaped to connect with a specific kind of person who hears it and says, "Oh, you're talking to me. Yes, I want to work with you."
Yeah. So this last year, you've been working with a number of virtual CFOs. These virtual CFOs are clearly working as advisors with clients. These are businesses that see a definite need in not just bookkeeping, accounting, and tax services, but something a little bit more. What role have you taken as you've tried to help these CFOs better interact and communicate with their clients? What is it that you've felt in this past year has really made a difference as to their ability to connect and deliver quality services?
Sure. It starts at the beginning with the public-facing message. I was originally brought on with the marketing department of a company called Summit Virtual CFO by Anders. Summit started back in 2002 as a two-person CPA firm that decided, you know what, we're going to start working, we're going to build our book of clients any way that we can. One of their clients was a digital agency. And they said, we like these guys. We can learn things from them. They ended up focusing specifically on digital agencies and built their book of business to 10 million a year, exclusively working with digital agencies. They were so good at what they did, they didn't need to be acquired, but a top 100 firm acquired them and said, we love you and what you're doing. Now let's grow this. So they decided, okay, we have built this by talking to one industry vertical. So let's grow by rolling out new verticals. Now, the challenge here was the founder had always been the public-facing representative. He's awesome, but he can't speak to the trucking industry the way someone who's run a $150 million logistics operation can. And that was one of the guys that I ended up working with, was this virtual CFO who has deep experience in the trucking industry, and saying, okay, what is your message that you're putting out into the world? What are we going to be talking about in your public facing presence? And when we talk about those core emotional drivers, they don't only work going out into the public, they also work the opposite direction, talking with clients. So the messaging works externally to the world. It also works internally to client-facing interactions. And it's so powerful that there is one of my other clients, his name is Tom. He is a virtual CFO who focuses mostly in the digital agency vertical. There was one client who was really frustrated and was about ready to walk away because of some technical issues with filing some taxes. And Tom was telling me about this in our conversations, and he said, you know what do you think about this? We went through a tool that we use, and he took that tool, and Tom went to this client, and in one conversation, talked the client off the ledge, kept the client from leaving, and saved Summit almost $200,000 in future revenue. This is not just squishy, undefined ideas. This stuff matters when it comes to what happens inside people's hearts and minds in ways that make dollars and cents difference down the road.
Well, the thing that I'm really appreciating here is the fact that we're having a conversation about messaging. And I think that's something that is, like you said, relevant to the niche marketing that we're doing, as we're trying to communicate to our ideal clients why what we have matters to them. And then it also is relevant to the client once we've onboarded them as to how to use the information that we're creating, all the accounting information, tax-related information, as it relates to them and what they need to be doing about their business as they're trying to increase profits, limit their legal tax liabilities, and so forth. So this is really good. So here's what I'd like to do, Jeff. I'm going to kind of wrap this up and summarize a few of the things that I think that we've discussed and come back to you for a closing thought. But one of the things that I want to point out is, for our listeners, in the episode description, I do have something that I'd like you to take advantage of. There is a book there that is called Your Strategic Accountant. Your Strategic Accountant happens to be a book where we actually cover what are those services that the business owner is expecting from us as an accounting profession. In fact, it addresses the three core services that we each need to be providing as we're servicing our clients to ensure that not only are they getting the information they need to run their businesses more profitably, but also at the same time getting from us the information that they need to take their businesses to another level. Essentially what it is to be compliant, more importantly, from just the accounting and tax, but also compliant from the standpoint of what it is they can be doing to grow their business. So I invite you to go to the episode description and get a copy of the book, Your Strategic Accountant. While you're there, I invite you to get the other one that is titled Your Profit and Growth Expert. It addresses this advisory conversation that we're having now as to what it is you can be doing to better your messaging and actually take to your clients the information that they need to be considering as they work on their business, building a business of value, addressing things such as their leadership, the accounting information, increasing revenue, improving profits, and building value in their organization, ultimately beginning with the end in mind. So check out those two books, get a copy of them as they relate to exactly what we're discussing here, offering quality advisory services and improving our messaging. Now, as to Jeff and the conversation today, I've really enjoyed the conversation because I do feel that the outside perspective of what we do as accounting professionals is important. What Jeff does is he brings in this storytelling narrative as to what it is we could be doing as we work with our clients and communicate to them more effectively what these numbers are, as to they just experience them. These are numbers that they should know, but they can't relate typically. They don't understand how they are actually relevant. But what we can do through storytelling is help position the information in a way that it's now relevant to them and useful for them to be making more informed business decisions. So I encourage everyone here to kind of take this to heart. The information that we're talking about here is how do we take the messaging of not just providing the financial reports and helping them be compliant, but now see the relevance of what this information is as they're running their business and using this to make more informed business decisions. That was really helpful. The other thing that I thought that was important from what Jeff was sharing earlier is the fact that there is a strategic process to this, some steps that we can follow. One of the things that I thought was important is just the idea of seeing the client as a hero, seeing us as that sage, the person that has some perspective or insights that's outside of their purview. And what we can do is actually help them understand what's going on in the business from a different perspective. That's very valuable. The other thing that I thought was also important is to understand how the story that the accounting profession has to share is relevant. He spoke of giving us voice so that we actually had something to say and a reason to say it. That's one of the things that I think was also very helpful. So, Jeff, what else would you like to add as a closing thought?
I'd say that there are two things. Number one, this is just the beginning. There is an entire world of impact waiting for you. If you're connecting with the ideas that we've been talking about and you want to dig in some more, there is a page specifically for listeners of this podcast where you can find a select group of podcast episodes from my own podcast. It lays out all the ideas that I use with my clients, and they build on top of each other. So you can wrap your head around things that way when you go to storygreenlight.com/universal. So storygreenlight.com/universal. And the next step is, if you are an established accounting professional and you believe that you have more to offer to the world than what you're currently offering, or that you have a cause or a mission that the world needs to hear, then I want to help you get there. As a gift for listeners of this podcast, I'd like to offer you the opportunity for a full complimentary coaching experience with me, no strings attached, no expectation to become a paying client, just as a gift for listeners of this podcast. And to apply for that complimentary coaching experience, you can refer to this podcast when you email me at hello@storygreenlight.com. So it's email hello@storygreenlight.com, because we are all putting messages out into the world one way or another. When we elevate that message, it elevates everything else downstream of it. Because I want you to know that you matter, this profession matters, and the world needs to hear what you have to say.
Jeff, I appreciate that. That contact information is very valuable, and I encourage listeners to take advantage of that. Also, what I want to do is mention, if you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, definitely do so. We'd love to have you subscribe and set up the notifications so that you're basically told of when these episodes air. They are released each and every week, and here we have those experts on every week for you to actually identify those things that you could be doing in and on your business to build a premier accounting firm in your area, offering quality accounting services and getting paid what you're worth. I would also invite you, in addition to subscribing to the podcast, to check out universalaccounting.com, where we have podcast highlights. These are playlists that we've compiled of various topics related to the various things that you're going to be addressing as you're working on your business, whether they be marketing, staffing, client relations, mental health. go there to the episode playlist and binge listen to those things that you find are most relevant to you in your current situation today. In addition to that, I want to invite you to GrowCon. GrowCon is an annual conference where we get together and each year have from the stage those experts speak to us and share with us insights as it relates to what it is we can be doing to build the premier accounting firm in our area. It's GrowCon. GrowCon is what you want to actually get a ticket to attend so you can also meet your peers. Individuals like you who are working to build their businesses in their area, offering quality accounting services. It's here that you can collaborate and work on things that may additionally help your clients. So definitely plan on coming to meet with your peers. And lastly, the staff here at Universal Accounting Center, those individuals that are committed to helping you be in business for yourself, but not by yourself with Universal Accounting. So with all those things being said, join us for GrowCon, make the most of it, and I'd look forward to seeing you there. Lastly, regarding this episode, these principles and anything else that we typically discuss on the show, if you'd like to apply them or discuss them further, feel free to reach out to us by going to universalaccountingschool.com or give us a phone call. You can call us at 801-265-3777. And always remember this, accounting success is universal. Take care. Have a great day. Be safe out there.